All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So, I'm Andrew, aka Giant Sandworm Mindgasms, for the purposes of this chat. And of course, I have the Golden Centrist. I was thinking about making my name something to do with the Golden Path, too. And we're talking about God Emperor of Dune, Book 4, in Frank Herbert's original epic sci-fi Dune or epic sci-fi fantasy Dune series. And as you can see, Leto, Paul Atreides slash Muad'Dib's son from the first book and the second book too, has lived for thousands of years already by basically merging his body with that of a giant sandworm, so that he can live for thousands of years and he can rule all of human civilization across multiple planets in order to follow the golden path, which is humanity's surest chance of survival. So he's in theory doing that to save humanity from extinction. And Paul Atreides, the was following the golden path too, but then got disillusioned from rulership, and I guess his kids were competing with each other for power, as always happens. And yeah, like we were talking about just before we started it seems like we both agree that this is the worst in the series, probably, because it's kind of the most uneventful and boring. But it's still, I'd say, definitely worth reading, because particularly because if I remember correctly, I think that I liked book 5 almost as much, if not just as much, as book 1. So it's worth reading 2, 3, and 4, I think, to get to 5. And I think they kind of get progressively worse to me after the first one, but then the fifth is a lot better. And then if I remember correctly again, uh, the I didn't like the sixth one as much as the fifth one, but I mean, it's still worth reading if you want to know the conclusion of the original series. But if you're like hardcore fantasy nerds like us, so I guess I kind of gave my general thoughts there. So, what are your general thoughts about this book, and also this one in comparison to the other ones we've read so far? You there, Dusty?
Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, I was saying, since this was my second read through, I actually had a better time going through it this time than I did the first time.
Oh yeah, I always
Um,
do upon rereads, I think.
and it's super slow. There's not much action, so to speak. Um, there are a couple things that piss me off about this particular book.
Like what?
Um, that Leto always speaks in vagaries.
Yeah, he does.
Um, which kind of pisses me off. It's like this guy, he kind of like never gets to the point about anything.
Yeah,
um, also, Duncan Idaho is just kind of a trash character. That's like super annoying in this iteration.
yeah. Well, and also throughout it, Leto is basically kind of predicting his every move, because he's something like the thousandth Gola slash clone made of biological or organic material, and but he's acting differently than any of the Golas have acted before. Yet he's still following kind of the same patterns that have led to Leto killing him when he's gotten too rebellious. And then, he ends up being in actually, yeah, I guess he ends up being somewhat involved with, you know, Leto's death at the end of the book. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think it mostly had something to do with, I don't know, what was that, his niece or
Yeah, was it
um,
Siona?
Yeah, because he could not predict her movements. She
Mm-hmm.
was basically like a blank spot in his prescient vision.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a spy with her, but he told the spy to basically do whatever she tells you to do.
Right.
So it was like him letting things happen. It didn't feel like he cared too much, and we got to kind of figure out that like in the end of it, he was like extremely bored because he's always in the position where he knows when everything's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, because
And
he has the prescience, right? So he talks about how there's one point where he I forget what it was that made him angry, but he's in his internal monologue. He's thinking, I've only been irritated at the most lately. It's been a long time since I've been angry. And there's another time where he gets surprised and he says, "Oh, I like that. Haven't experienced this in a while." It's like just the idea of a god that we've seen before. They're just bored because existence is too easy. So they don't even seem to mind that much when things go wrong because it's different.
right, so he's kind of just in this mode where, yeah, he knows that he has to follow the golden path, but he's also just bored with existence in general.
Hmm.
Um, he also kind of made society, like I would say, he personally follows a conservative type of philosophy where nothing really is changing in his empire. He does not allow people to travel from world to world.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's a pretty like fascist or totalitarian rulership. Like you said, he doesn't allow anyone to travel between planets, and he only allows small villages where people exist too. Cities aren't allowed because he says something about how when populations get big enough, it leads to civil unrest, which kind of seems actually true if you're talking about, hunter-gatherer societies versus the cities that we're used to now.
right. So he has kind of made this very static society where there's no progress, not basically no progress has been made
Right.
in the last thousands or 2,000 years that he's been the emperor. And another thing is he's been illegally using technology that normally would be banned.
Yeah,
Um,
some kind of is it AI or just like sufficiently advanced to be illegal?
the only thing I know is that the illegal machine kind of records his thoughts into a journal.
Oh, right. So that's how the stolen journals are written, that they're epigraphs from at the at the start of each chapter.
Well, one thing I'm very happy of is that Scott Brick got relegated to only narrating the stolen journals, and he had no further role beyond that in this
Yeah,
audiobook.
yeah. He is not a good audiobook narrator.
Yeah, I don't like his style. It's just like just whenever he says something, it's just ridiculously over dramatic. Like I wish I had a paragraph to try to mimic the way he says things. It's just kind of ridiculous.
Ruler of Intergalactic Empire becomes giant sandworm to save humanity.
Well, it's not quite like that. It's just he has a certain cadence and tone that he always seems to follow,
Yeah, regardless of what character he's doing, right?
regardless of the character, regardless of the tone. It's always like the same. I was like, Jesus, this guy. Well, at least he didn't have to voice like multiple characters or anything like that. All his
Yeah.
characters all sound the same. It's like no difference.
Hmm.
Like his like I'm gonna try to do an impression of him but this is probably not going to go very well. I'm just reading a paragraph from a textbook here. It's like, we were inspired to create the Genki in our days. Let's see, language and he like goes up and down for like no reason. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, that's true. Kind of like the newscaster cadence a little bit.
yeah, our idea was to conceive a textbook that no one would be. It's like a white Martin Luther King kind of deal that he did.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah. It's like the kind
Our
of
idea was to
white preacher.
conceive a textbook in. It's like if Martin Luther King was some boring white like audiobook narrator that kind of like would explain Scott Brick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, he got relegated to only doing the secret journals, so I was okay with that. And
Hmm.
it seems like usually in the Dune books he doesn't have that big a role. It's usually the other guy, like the English dude, that
Yeah.
does a pretty decent job.
Like the guy that
Um,
does Leto's and Duncan Idaho's voices and stuff. And then there's that female narrator who does the, well, not all the time, but does the female characters a lot of the time.
yeah, there was only a couple chapters where she read. I know one was from like it was from I know one of the Bene Gesserit had their own chapter, and I think also I'm not sure if we did or it was someone else, but it wasn't very often to hear the female reader.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this book is so slow.
Yeah, it is.
And I also feel that I don't know, like Leto could be an interesting character, but he's like extremely vague and pompous,
Yeah.
so that kind of like makes me not like him.
Yeah. He's almost like uh, Duncan Idaho is kind of a
He's
consistent
also
moral
pompous.
compass. Yeah, he's also pompous, but he also has like a better moral compass, and it seems to him like, especially towards the end of the book, obviously, that like it seems like Leto has become the bad guy or evil or something, at least to Duncan Idaho. So, and
Well, I think Idaho also has his own like failures and weaknesses,
oh yeah.
especially when it came to like the love triangle.
Yeah, he had sex with that woman who he wasn't supposed to have sex with.
All right, and he got pissed off because she was going to marry Leto. And it was like I felt like this was her decision and she was like completely had agency as a character.
Hmm.
And I felt that Duncan was like trying to force her to do something that she really didn't want to do.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because I think she genuinely loved Leto and did want to marry him. It's not like I didn't get the feeling that it was something that was forced upon her. I got the feeling that
Hmm.
that's what she actually wanted to do.
Yeah, and then the only part that gives me a little bit of doubt about that, but I think this is because maybe her mind changed later on in the book. Um, it was revealed that when she was talking to Duncan at one point, that she didn't like him as much as it made it seem that she likes him.
Leto or Duncan?
Leto, like
Um,
she didn't like Leto as much as it seems she did, because she says negative things to him and stuff like that, whereas she's being she's being kind towards him, especially the part where he takes her out into the desert to basically teach her how to survive, as a
well,
Fremen
that
would
was a
have.
different character.
Oh, am I confusing Siona with what's that other chick's name?
we,
What what
because
we?
okay, so Siona was like the rebel who was the daughter of a rebel, because her father got pacified and
Okay.
became basically Leto's right hand man.
Oh, so
And
that's what the hell's that character's name? Like
starts with
his
an
advice.
M.
Uh,
I forget,
I'm
man.
gonna look. I'm gonna look that up. Leto's
His
advisor.
Major Domo. What was his title?
Yeah,
He's a
in
Major
God Emperor
Domo,
of
but
Dune.
I don't remember his name. There was another guy as well. He was it was kind of still on the rebel side that they had he had a chat with.
Oh, I didn't remember this. It's telling me about Hui, who you mentioned, Hui Nori. Leto fell in
Yeah,
love with the Ixian ambassador, Hui Nori. Hui was a direct female clone of Leto's former friend and advisor, Malki, created by the Twi'lexu in an Ixtlan no chamber. Oh, yeah, that was one thing that I still don't always get them straight, but I had an easier time getting the different kind of factions straight in this one. I mean, I I already have a pretty clear idea of who the Fremen and the Bene Gesserit are, and
mm-hmm.
this book kind of reminded me who exactly the face chancers are. Like they can shapeshift their faces, especially that part where they shifted their faces to all look like Duncan, Idaho.
Right.
Um, and it's the Twi'lexu that I still can't really get straight in my mind sometimes.
Well, the Tailaxu are the ones who employ the face dancers or create them.
Okay,
They also create the Golas.
right.
I think
Okay.
I think that they do, or is it the Ixians? I think that the Ixians are the ones that are trying to build a machine to circumvent spice so that they can do the things that spice will allow them to do, but to do it mechanically.
Right, because the spice is running out, so they're trying to create some basically artificial version of the spice.
Well, it's not that it's running out, it's that Leto has 100% control over the spice
Yeah,
trade.
yeah. He decides who gets the spice, and he's not allowing most people to get enough spice, at least, or any.
Yeah, so the Thylaxu or whatever they're called, um, they I know they are trying to like assassinate him. They try to use like espionage in the way of assassination and poisoning and things
Hmm.
like that. The Ixians did it differently. They sent a clone that they knew because the information they got from um, the clone's father, they were able to build this clone in such a way that it would cause Leto to fall in love with the clone.
Right,
And they knew that if Leto loved something, that would make him vulnerable.
right.
So that was the reason they set that up.
And it turns
And
out that they
Leto didn't
were right
even
about that,
care.
and that ends up working, obviously, right?
Yes and no, because she gets killed.
Yeah. Well, I guess she yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because she she ended up accomplishing her mission, but yeah, she died in the process for sure.
Um, but yeah, it just ends up that Siona and Duncan Idaho assassinated Leto. And it seems like, to be honest, Duncan's reasons were pretty petty.
Yeah, it does seem that way. I agree.
Siona, she's kind of more of a bigger picture type of. Um, um, it seems like hers was more because of the political situation, in that, because I know during her testing, she kept questioning why he had to rule in the way that he did.
Hmm.
And then this was supposed to be answered by her completing the test and seeing the golden path.
Right.
and I guess Leto thought maybe she would agree once she saw the golden path, but it really didn't change much. I actually don't think she fully went through it because during her testing, they were interrupted by some rain.
Right. Yeah, and we find out that Rain hurts Leto because he's still partially human, but his body is mostly the giant sandworm at this point. He just has a face and tiny T-Rex arms.
Yeah, I also think it's funny that Duncan thinks he can kick everyone's ass, but he can't.
Yeah.
Like
I
he
think
gets
it's
his
funny
ass
too.
handed
I
to
think
him like
it's
a
funny
hundred and
too that
thirty
he wants
year old
to.
dude.
Sorry?
He gets his ass handed to him by like a 130-year-old dude.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's interesting too, the part when Leto is trying to use Duncan to have sex with Hui, I think it is, to produce an heir for him, but he refuses to be basically his gigolo, or as he says, his stud. But
Well,
then
he
he
wanted him to have sex with Siona.
oh right, yeah, Siona. See, I kept getting Siona and Hui confused a few times throughout the book.
Well, he wanted his major domo to have sex with we.
Okay.
But yeah, he was like definitely trying to manipulate. And he did have his own breeding program, and all of the people involved were part of his breeding program,
Right, right.
whether
The
they wanted
Benny
to
just
participate or not.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Force eugenics, basically. Like he says that he took over the Benny Gesserit's breeding program, right? And
Hmm.
he's like you said, he's even more harsh about it than they were, or more authoritarian.
Right. So he, in doing so, I think that's probably another reason why they wanted to assassinate him, because of this forced breeding program, and he was being really authoritarian about their lives and how they wanted to live them.
Yeah, it seems like, and yeah, obviously it seems like Leto, the reason he's merging his body with that of a giant sandworm is so that, like we said, he can live for thousands of years, and he thinks that's how he can pursue the golden path and save humanity from extinction by there only being one consistent ruler of the entire intergalactic empire for as long as possible. And he says at one point too that he already has saved humanity from extinction because they would have already gone extinct by now if he hadn't been forming this type of authoritarian government in theory to save the human race.
Right, because he did explain himself to Siona that had he not done what he done, there wouldn't be a human race
Yeah.
existing today. So it's not like his intentions are bad. Like he truly believes that he is the savior of humanity, and he's
Hmm.
probably right.
Yeah.
But the other people just don't really care
Yeah.
if
It's
that's the case or
interesting too
not.
because as these themes have been explored in the other books, of course, but like you have to do a lot of terrible shit to save humanity. Like for example, how uh, Paul Atreides slash Muad'Dib commits mass genocide of billions of people in the I think in between the first and the second books or during the second book. And
Right.
that's why I think Leto, even though some people like Duncan Idaho, for example, and others, of course, see him as the bad guy, I think he's kind of like morally gray in some ways because you have to do all sorts of terrible shit for the bigger picture of saving the human race.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't get is that Duncan got super offended when Leto decided to flog like one of the Thylaxu ambassadors or something. Do you remember that? When he
Not very
flogged
well.
yeah, so he had a Thylaxu ambassador flogged under the ulterior motive that it was a message to the Thylaxu not to try to assassinate him.
Okay.
As that was a response to when like the 50 Duncan Idahos came out and they tried to kill
Oh, the face dancers
him.
when they
Yes.
were trying to kill Leto.
Right. So as a response, he flogged the ambassador of Thylaxu
Right.
under the guise of it was he had another reason, like a surface level reason to do that, but the real reason was because they tried to assassinate him.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I remember Duncan Idaho got super offended and he thought that was an evil act. And I was like, really? These people just tried to assassinate him. They're getting off easy.
Yeah.
if and he thinks that this is super immoral. I was like, hmm. And yeah, in general, I just found Duncan Idaho to be generally annoying in this
Oh,
book.
okay. I didn't find him as annoying as you. I didn't find Leto as annoying either. I kind of I kind of got where both of them were coming from, and I would say Duncan, Idaho to a greater extent, but I would say yeah, there were definitely annoying aspects of both of them too. But you found Duncan, Idaho more annoying than Leto?
Oh yeah, because he always thought he was hot shit, and he always resulted to anger, and he was always quick to solve something by violence.
Yeah, that's
Because I
true.
remember he was gonna beat the I think the major domo. He was losing a battle of wits with the major domo, and because he felt insulted by the major domo, he attacked
Right.
him.
Yeah, that
And
wasn't wise.
the major domo put him in his place.
Yeah,
And the same thing was going to happen with his daughter. What's her name?
the major domo's daughter.
Yeah, the one that's also a rebel and aided in assassinating Leto.
Oh, right. I forget her name too.
Anyway, he tried to attack her too, or he attempted to attack her.
Right.
And the major domo was like, "Yeah, do that. She's even stronger than me. So good luck with that." And
Yeah.
he stayed his hand. Because it's funny, whenever Duncan got insulted, he wanted to beat somebody up because he wasn't smart enough to trade wits with people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's why I found him annoying, mainly.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of how Duncan, Idaho is.
I know, but it's really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
Not
sure.
it's how this Duncan Idaho is.
Yeah.
Not all Duncan Idahos are like this. Like the Duncan Idaho that was like a mentat wouldn't have these issues. Like he seemed extremely dumb compared to like other iterations of Duncan Idaho.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could say that. Well, I mean, part of it too was that he technically was really young. Like because he was a Gola slash clone, he had the body of a grown man, but he was only, I don't remember, like a few years old or so.
But he still had the memories of his previous life.
Yeah, that's true.
So it wasn't like he was starting from, year one. He did have the previous memories that he would have had he lived on past his original time and on Paul Atreides' time.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. I just found this version of Duncan Idaho to be, I don't know. I just found him annoying. I don't know. His behavior just wasn't on par with some of the previous iterations that I've seen.
Fair enough. Yeah, he's like more of a stoic badass in first book in particular. You still there? I think you might have muted yourself. You still there? What happened? You still have your internet there? I still have mine. Oh, what happened to Dusty? Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
I can
something's
hear you
going on
now.
with my phone. It's like it's not treating this window as if I'm watching a video. So what it's doing is I have to keep tapping on my screen so that my
Oh,
phone
okay.
stays awake. I don't know why it's
Okay.
doing it, but it is doing it. So
Okay.
that's what happened. Now, what I was
Okay.
just saying is Duncan's seemed out of character in this book
Right.
to me, anyway.
Yeah. Like I was saying, he's kind of more of a stoic badass in the first book.
Right.
He's one of my
And
favorite characters normally. I would say this is one of my least favorite versions of Duncan Idaho too. And like we've kind of talked about before, it's it's sort of like he's the secret main character of the series because he's the only one who's in every book because he comes back as a Gola or clone in every one, even
right.
though he dies in the first book.
Yeah, his story is a bit short-lived in the first book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he definitely has a much more involved story here. But like ultimately his choice to assassinated to assassinate Leto seems to come from a place. And it's funny because that decision hurt him as much as it hurt Leto because I'm planning to assassinate um because he wanted to assassinate Leto because he wanted we. And that shit
He did
back
it selfishly out of love. And it's
and
interesting too
it
because I
backfired
thought that.
hard on him.
Sorry.
It backfired so hard on him that
Oh yeah,
she
for sure.
died.
I just think even though I agree with you that Duncan Idaho was more like he was more annoying in this than he usually is, or at least less interesting. Um, I thought that it was interesting that he would kind of betray rather Leto because he's been so loyal to the Atreides for so long. So it's such an extreme about face for his character.
Right. And to me, it felt like, I don't know, like the reasons weren't sufficient for him to betray Leto in the way that he did.
Like he didn't have adequate motivation for it.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Like, one, they knew that, if it's my understanding, did he not know that we was basically like, I guess, quote unquote, dating Leto?
Yeah, I was kind of betrothed to, or she was kind of
Yeah,
betrothed to him.
and
I think that, yeah, he did know because remember that the that advisor guy who was Leto's right hand man said that they were forbidden from seeing each other at all, but then he
right.
saw her anyway, and they had sex anyway.
All right, so that makes me think if I were Leto, I'd be like super pissed off because you're thinking, man, this ungrateful bastard. But yeah, it just it seems like Duncan was in the wrong on that, both with his pursuance of Lee and his willingness to assassinate the house that, like, the leader of the house that he's supposed to be loyal to.
Yeah.
So they say, oh,
I
he's
would
the
say the
moral. To
like
me, he
the
was
only.
not the moral compass for me that he
Oh,
that
okay.
you
I
give
think
to me in this one in
okay.
particular.
I think like to me, I think he was still more of a moral compass in this because I do understand his motivation somewhat because it seemed like I said, it probably seems to him like Leto has kind of turned evil because he's so authoritarian and doing all these terrible things. And I don't know, I guess he has less of a connection to Leto, but it's also interesting that Leto he it considers himself a god because he's all of the Atreides and he can it's like he has all of their souls within him. So it's like Duncan Idaho is probably more loyal to Paul than anyone else, which is why Leto uses his voice at one point. And you know, I agree how I can totally see how any character would see Leto as evil in his role because they don't understand the broader picture of the golden path.
Well, I don't even think that Leto is particularly evil, and
I
he's
wouldn't
not even
say
particularly evil when you compare him to somebody like Paul.
really. I would say he's like like I said, I would say he's kind of morally gray. I wouldn't say he's a good guy, but I wouldn't say he's a bad guy either. But I
I'm
would
just
still say
saying,
that
like, as
isn't
far as
wouldn't
like
you
the
say
harm that has been caused, like, compared to, I guess, compared to Paul, there's not this huge that he took part in or
this what?
instigated. The genocide that Paul instigated, that like billions and billions died.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Like, the only thing that's wrong with Leto's society is that it's stagnant. Like, there's no progress. But
Maybe
I don't.
that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe that's the reason why it kind of seems like he's more like I said, not evil, but more evil than Muad'Dib, even though he didn't commit that mass genocide like Muad'Dib did, because he has a more authoritarian type of rulership, even more so than Paul did.
Well, I think possibly Leto's was keeping the universe or empire in a state of stasis. Was
Yeah,
because if he didn't, there probably would be genocide and stuff going on.
yeah, that's what they're both doing, really. But for example, with Paul's rulership, people could travel in between planets still, and he didn't take control of the Bene Gesserit breeding program, and there are plenty of other examples.
Paul's seemed more chaotic because a lot more people died.
Yeah, uh, yeah. I guess. Hmm. Do you
And
get
it
do you get
seems
what
like,
do you get what I mean by how, at least to other characters and even somewhat to me, he could have like he kind of seems more evil, even though on paper he's not that way because he has more of an authoritarian ruling style, in spite of the fact that Paul Muad'Dib committed mass genocide.
he would appear to be, if you didn't attribute the mass genocide to Paul. Like, if that wasn't apparent to people living in the time of Paul that he was the instigator of the mass genocide, then yeah, he probably would appear more evil, but I don't think he actually would be more
Okay. Yeah, I think also particularly from the perspective of the characters in this book, because Leto is the only one who has lived for thousands of years. Other people only know what Paul Muad'Dib did from hearing stories about it. Maybe they heard about his mass genocide, though, but maybe even if they did hear about it, it's so long ago that the more recent events that Leto is participating in seem more evil because they're closer. Kind of like an example would be that Hitler seems more evil than Genghis Khan, for example, to people because he's a more recent historical example of a genocidal, egomaniacal dictator.
Yeah, I guess the difference between Genghis Khan and so how did Genghis Khan?
Oh, your sound cut out again there.
Like Genghis Khan, did he kill people through battle or did he just round up people and slaughter them?
I think both.
Oh, he did both. He just like rounded people up and just killed them all.
Yeah, he killed. There were plenty of epic battles with the Mongols, but then whenever they would take over a city, they would like rape and kill a whole bunch of people.
Okay, so yeah, he's pretty bad. 'Cause I didn't know if Genghis Khan's massive slaughter was a result of war or raping and
Well, it was
pillaging and
like
innocents.
the ambition for world conquest, like Alexander the Great, or plenty of other people throughout human history. You should listen to, if you haven't, Dan Carlin's hardcore history series called Wrath of the Khans, which is all about Genghis Khan and the Mongols. It's awesome as usual for Dan Carlin.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one when it was free, so I'd have to scope that out.
Oh yeah, it might not be free anymore. Yeah, I listened to it when it was free.
Yeah, that one was not free. It wasn't even free 5 years ago, so I don't think it's
Oh
free
wow, it
now.
must have been a long time ago that I listened to it.
Right. It's, so I remember hearing about it and then looking, it was never on the free list.
Okay. Uh, yeah, yeah. Hmm, I would say Muad'Dib is, or Paul Muad'Dib is more evil than Genghis Khan. But yeah, Leto is less evil than Paul Muad'Dib. Like I guess technically he is just period, but on paper especially, but because of the because of the way people look at history and whatnot, he probably seems more evil than Paul seems to people who are living in Leto's time.
Right. Um, yeah, he's no more evil than a South American dictator, I guess. I don't know. Um, but it seems like he tries to avoid war and conflict at the same time, also.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit of a different style. As it seems like he's always, um, since he sees everything that's going to happen, it seems like he has been avoiding disaster.
It seems though like I'm curious of your opinion about this because it seems to me like he has a greater prescient ability than Paul Muad'Dib did, but it still seems like he doesn't have 100% knowledge of what will happen in the future, and he just knows the most likely possibility of what will happen, as evidenced by the fact that it seems like he's even like he can even read people's thoughts most of the time when they're in the room with him, and he anticipates almost everything that happens, but he doesn't anticipate that betrayal that leads to his death.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's reading people's thoughts, or if he's been alive so long that his pattern recognition is just ridiculous. You know, so I think it's more of the latter. I don't think he's actually reading people's thoughts. I just think he knows how people think and how they'll react to certain things.
Okay.
So he's
I
already
was,
like 10 steps ahead, like in a
yeah, yeah.
conversation.
It's like he's playing 4D chess, basically. And I just, on a totally different note, because I was mentioning I don't have all the different factions straight in my head before, looked up
Hmm.
the difference between the Ixians and the Tleilaxu. Both these factions are insular and guard their secrets carefully, and the cultures of both depend on subjugation. The difference is that the Ixians depend on a worker class of suboids, and the Tleilaxu depend on closely guarded secrets about the biological sources which sustain their master of genetic technology. Oh, so that's like the technology of
The
the breeding
golas.
program. Oh yeah, the Golas, not the breeding program. Right, that makes sense.
Well, I think they also attempted themselves to
Yeah,
breed in the way that the Bene Gesserit have been breeding. So they
yeah.
do it, and it's just a different way that they try to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the to me the most interesting and also weirdest and most bizarre aspect of the whole book is, of course, Leto merging his body with that of a giant sandworm. But there isn't really like similarly to some other books, like book 2 and 3 in particular. There's all sorts of weird stuff, like a dwarf and all sorts of other bizarre shit. But like just Leto becoming a giant sandworm, it seemed like the only super bizarre aspect of this one to me. You still there, dude? Oh, he got kicked out. Must have had that problem again with his phone. Okay. So yeah, the Bene Gesserit have the breeding program, and the Tleilaxu are in charge of the Golas, which are clones made of biological material, but they try the Bene Gesserit eugenics, basically, style breeding program too. Your your screen go dark there again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to fix something, but hopefully this will fix it.
Okay,
I don't know why this it didn't used to do this for. It just started today. I don't know what's going on. Like
that's
imagine
weird.
you're watching a YouTube video on your phone and the screen goes dark and cuts off. That's kind of
Yeah,
what I'm experiencing here.
yeah, that's definitely not supposed to happen.
Right. Oh, what were you saying? Because I had not heard
I
till I
was
got
just
cut
kind of
off there.
clarifying uh what you were clarifying about the the Tleilaxu, and just mentioning basically mentioning the some of the differences, one of the differences between the Bene Gesserit and the Tleilaxu, that the Bene Gesserit have the basically eugenic style breeding program, and the Tleilaxu have the secrets of the and the organic material for how to create Golas slash clones. But like you said, they also try the Bene Gesserit breeding program at one point, but they fail to do so.
Yeah,
You,
sorry about that. Yeah. Well, I went and set the screen time up to 10 minutes. That's the maximum.
oh, okay.
So it won't start dimming on me, hopefully, for
Okay.
10 minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead and repeat your question about the Thylaxu.
Oh, it wasn't a question. I was just basically confirming what you said about the Tleilaxu, and that they try and fail to use Bene Gesserit style of like eugenics breeding program, and but they also have the secrets and genetic material for how they can create golas slash clones made of organic or biological material.
Yeah, so their program is much more technologically advanced because if you remember, the Bene Gesserit were doing it through old-fashioned, getting people pregnant and hoping that these two people will create a certain human, while as the Thylaxu, they're just growing people in tanks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So they have like a faster iteration time, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
don't have
exactly.
all like the magical powers that the Bene Gesserit have. I don't know if you want to call them magical or just like they're ultra sensitive to the universe or
I
whatever
don't know. I
you'd want
mean,
to call it.
I kind of would say the Bene Gesserit have magic powers because they can basically do Jedi mind tricks, and like they can do all sorts of interesting stuff with their minds.
Yeah, it's almost like they have mastery over the mind and the physical body,
Yeah.
plus the ability to, well, not they, because it's only the people of the Atreides line who seem to be able to go into that mode where they're able to have the presence of all their ancestors with them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And obviously the only ones who have the prescience as well.
Right, right. So yeah, it's and the Ixians are the ones that are basically breaking the Butlerian Jihad.
Yeah, they're basically they're not exactly creating AI, but creating advanced enough technology that it has been outlawed for years. And yeah, that reminds me too. I probably mentioned in every one of our chats about Dune, about the Dune books that, um, like there are a whole bunch of other prequel books written by Frank Herbert's son and one other author, and I've read all or at least most of them, and a lot of them are kind of mediocre. But I like two of the. It's a bunch of different trilogies that are all prequels, and I like two of them in particular. The first ones that came out after the original Dune series, which are House Atreides, House Carino, and House Harkonnen, who are the three houses slash factions that are always warring with each other over control of the spices, especially in the earlier Dune books. And then, like I said, my favorite prequel trilogy that I actually like almost as much, if not perhaps even more than the original Dune trilogy, is the Butlerian Jihad trilogy, which is awesome. It's the whole trilogy about the Butlerian Jihad and a whole bunch of awesome battles and stuff. And it's basically a whole bunch of battles between cyborgs and Bene Gesserit and Blade Masters. So it's really epic and awesome.
I hope to eventually get there someday.
Yeah, we should do chats about both of those prequel trilogies eventually.
Yeah, because I haven't read any of the books that were published or written by the son. I
Yeah,
only have read the original six.
yeah. I'd say like I said, if you want to like basically fully explore a hell of a lot of the history and world building of the Dune universe, as both of us seem to tend to do, I would recommend reading a whole bunch of the other prequels. But like I said, those two prequel trilogies are my favorite for sure, and definitely in particular the Butlerian Jihad one.
Okay, that's something I will have to get to in the future at some point in time.
For sure. All right, so what else am I kind of am I missing anything else that we could talk about from this book?
Well, do you want to talk about like the current state of the Fremen?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I forgot they're the museum Fremen. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, they're not what they used to be. They're kind of like a shadow of the Fremen that we're used to. That these warriors are kind of reduced to putting on a facade of how Fremen lived.
Hmm.
I know Duncan goes and he visits them and he's like, these aren't Fremen.
Hmm.
These are just like pretend Fremen.
Yeah.
That's pretty much true. Uh, and I know, I keep forgetting her name. The girl that participates in the assassination.
Uh, Siona?
Siona, yeah, she just goes to the Fremen village and just like insults their way of life.
Hmm.
Duncan does defend them in a way,
Yeah.
because she's kind of bougie. She can't handle roughing it. And she
Yeah.
makes some pretty poor decisions. Like, I know during her test, she almost died because she wasn't wearing the still suit properly.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't wearing the still suit properly, so she lost a lot of moisture. And Leto decided to save her because she agreed to his terms.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me too. The part when they're out in the desert. That another different aspect of this book. Actually, a few different aspects. One is that, remember you were asking in our last Dune chat which book they start calling Arrakis/Dune, Rakis for short. That starts in this book for sure, as I'm sure you noticed too, right?
Yeah, when someone tried to call it that, they're like, no, it's this.
Yeah.
Like they weren't allowed to
And
use the old terminology. And
and
that mainly was because of Duncan, because he was using the old words.
yeah, exactly. And the other interesting aspect of this book is that it's not Arrakis is not totally a desert planet, but it's still, there's still some desert on it because there's been a lot of terraforming done, but it's not complete.
Yeah, it seems like the terraforming that had been done in the previous books, um, Leto wants to reverse it. And he wants Arrakis to become a desert planet again, and for the cycle of the sandworm to begin again. Also, there's kind of a split personality that we kind of learn about when it comes to Leto.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot about that part.
yeah, so Monero, which is the major domo, he's able to tell when he's going to have these split personalities. And it's always a battle between Leto's consciousness and the worm, which is what he's becoming.
Right, right, yeah,
And usually the worm lashes out in some type of anger,
right,
and everybody fears the worm.
right, yeah, yeah. The worm probably, it could easily have lashed out in anger after Leto got attacked by those face dancers and just mass executed all of them instead of just giving them a flogging.
Right. So we do see that Leto is actually on the decline, as in, when I say decline, the worm is starting to take over.
Hmm.
So it seems like in the future, there might not have been a conscious Leto, it would have just been a sandworm.
Yeah, because he would have turned completely into a sandworm, not only his body, but his mind too. I forgot about that aspect. That's an important one too, because he wanted to turn his body into that of an entire sandworm, but eventually, I think you're right, he would have just, lost his human consciousness and been of no use to anyone, including himself pursuing the golden path anyway.
Yeah, so I think at some point in time, he would have, like his godhood wouldn't have lasted forever.
Yeah, probably.
And he had been slowly metamorphizing over those thousands of years. And it was kind of at this point when he only had his limbs, which were kind of vestigial appendages, and his face were like the only things that were really still human. And those were also the things that were still vulnerable to attack when it came to laser gunfire. You still there? Or are you muted?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. The only his face and hands, I think, are vulnerable to laser gun fire, but then the rest of his sandworm body, or the sandworm part of his body, I guess I should say, is only vulnerable to things like water, as we see later on in the book.
So yeah, it kind of seemed like even he knew in his future that he would just become a mindless sandworm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually preparing the planet for that eventuality.
Yeah, but that's like, I don't see how he could have thought that the rulership of the intergalactic empire would have even survived without him, or at
Well, I
least
think he was
been
probably
as functional.
he was preparing people to do these things. And like one
Right.
of the other things I kind of, because this is a reread, we kind of get to see the origins of the Honored Matres here.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
The fish speakers, right?
Yeah, the fish speakers.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that that Duncan Idaho is a total bigot because
What do
he
you
gets
mean?
pissed off when he sees like two women kissing or something like that.
Oh, I forgot about that too. Oh yeah, that's true.
Do you remember? That's one of the other things that I thought that made him a bad character. Like, he's getting pissed off about two girls kissing, and then Leto has to give him a lesson. Hey, they can do whatever they want. It's like,
Right. Oh
Jesus.
yeah. I forgot I'm just looking up the fish speakers here now. I forgot they're all women too.
All right. And they're like the warriors, and he's kind of also bigoted when it comes to that, saying, "Oh, they're women, they can't fight," and blah 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 blah. And
Oh, and
then,
right, the fish speakers is formed because Leto. Oh yeah, I remember now that I think about it, Leto talking about how women are the best warriors.
yeah, because they have better temperaments, and um, they don't do like dick measuring contests
Yeah.
that lead to unrest and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. That's another tick against Duncan that I had.
Right.
uh, his character in this particular book.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So yeah, that's one of the other things I completely forgot about. I was like, man, why is he being an asshole just because he saw two girls kissing?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wonder. Hmm. I wonder if that's if whether that was in like just a deliberate opinion put in there of Duncan Idaho, or an opinion of Frank Herbert itself, because of course you can't attribute the features of characters to an author because they're creating fictional characters. But this was back in, I think this book came out in the 80s or something, right? Maybe the
Well,
first one.
I don't think it was the author inserting himself, because in the exchange he had with Leto, it seemed like Leto had the moral high ground.
Yeah, that's true.
So if that
Yeah,
was the case, he would have ceded the moral high ground.
yeah.
I don't think an author would do that and that is indeed the author's voice, unless
Yeah,
they're talking about them changing their mind about something. But
yeah, yeah. Good for Frank Herbert, because I just looked that up, and this one came out in 1981. So a lot more people were homophobic back then.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, Duncan is like, he seemed like kind of an ass backward character in this
Yeah.
book, and that's kind of makes sense because he's kind of plucked out of the past, so he's kind of supposed to be ass backward.
Yeah.
So I don't fault him for that, but you know, at least they put him in his place when he was being ass backward most of the time.
So wait, it sounds like you have the details more straight than I do about how exactly Leto died and who killed him, because I remember it was multiple people. Oh, that reminds me too. It was interesting. There's one part where he was contemplating suicide and thinking about throwing himself off a cliff, which he had never experienced before because he was so sure about his journey on the golden path.
Yeah, I think didn't he start getting suicidal once he knew that he couldn't physically love Lee with his
Yeah,
worm
because
body?
there was that was the weirdest part of the book too, where they kind of like try to have some sort of sexual encounter, but it's too awkward and weird.
Yeah, nothing can be done there.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Yeah, I
kind of
wouldn't
just
want to.
explains that he's kind of an asexual being at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try to have sex with a giant sandworm with a face and arms.
Right, it'd be pretty strange, right?
But he is right that there's more to a relationship than just the physical aspects. But usually you have the physical aspects and emotional and other aspects.
Right. He just isn't capable of having the physical aspect.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he can hug somebody. He doesn't really have appendages that work.
He could. Yeah, his
I
arms are
guess he
too
could
short to
kiss
be
them,
able. He
but
does have
his legs
arms,
are.
but they're too short to be able to hug someone, I think.
I don't think they're functional either. I think they're just kind of flapping there.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
you're right
think
about that,
yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Like, he can't actually hold anything.
Yeah.
He's pretty agile for his size, but I don't think he's dexterous.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah.
So what were like I was asking, you remember what the exact details are of how Leto gets killed and who kills him?
Yeah, so I know when they're in CH Tabor or whatever you want to call it at this point, I think they just called it Tabor, like the fake Fremen city.
Mm.
They find out that he's moving his wedding there, and I guess that's when Siona and Duncan plan to do the deed.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like there's some type of, I don't know, an explosion or something that's happening during, like some type of procession.
Oh, right, yeah.
And and I don't know if it's kind of like this type of walkway they're on or whatever, but something blows up, I think, and then we like falls off and falls to her death.
Right, yeah.
And Leto also falls, but he survives the fall. Because they fall into some type of body of water.
Right.
Leto survives this fall, and he's
Severely wounded. You cut out again there. And then does he die from having fallen into water, since water is one of the few things that hurts him? I think that's probably the case. You still there, Dusty? Oh, well, he didn't get kicked out. He might be having sound issues there. But yeah, and obviously when Leto dies, Duncan Idaho is
I
fine
don't
with
know
that.
when I cut off. What was the last thing I said?
You were just talking about how Hui and Leto fell off the cliff into some water, but Leto survived.
Oh yeah, he survived impact, and he made his way to the shore, severely weakened. I think he found like a cave or alcove, and then while he's slowly dying, Fiona and Duncan find him, and he kind of has like his final monologue with them
Mm-hmm.
while he's like dying.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I saw it happen. Were you kind of unclear about the way he died?
Yeah, I didn't. I was a little bit unclear about the details. I remembered that there were multiple people around when that happened, but I didn't remember whether there were other people there who I
Yeah, there was
forgot about.
one other person. The other person that was sent there, who was the girl who Leto had as a spy to serve Siona.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I believe Siona ordered the spy to like shoot Leto with a laser gun, and she
Oh,
failed to
right.
do so. And I don't know if Duncan or if Siona shot her in the head. One of the two.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one though, but she got shot in the head with a laser gun, I believe.
Is it Nayla?
Yeah, there you go. That's her name.
Okay, yeah, I just looked it up.
Yeah, but she got shot in the dome, and those were the three that had discovered him.
Right. Okay.
And then
Yes.
Duncan is also upset, obviously, because we died.
Yeah,
So his,
yeah, and
so his efforts were like for nothing.
yeah, and that's like basically the reason that he wanted Leto to die, right?
Yeah, because of the love triangle.
Hmm. Yeah, that's another aspect of this that I wasn't a huge fan of because I don't mind some tropes. I even like some tropes if they're done
Mm-hmm.
well at least. But the love triangle one is one that I pretty much always don't like.
Yeah, it tends not to work quite a bit.
Yeah,
It depends on how it's resolved, though.
yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, so yeah, we went over the ending there. Were there any other aspects you can think of that we didn't cover?
As far as major aspects, not really. I think we covered most of like the plot and the major characters of the book. Um, but yes, there's a lot of dialogue in this
There
book.
is. There's a hell of a lot of
Uh,
dialogue in all of the Dune books, but this one more so than any other.
yeah, there's just a metric ton of dialogue
Yeah.
and a metric ton of characters in their own heads as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's another major aspect of the Dune books in general, but again, way more so in this one than any other.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, if I remember correctly, um, I know I definitely gave this book, God Emperor of Dune, 3 stars. If I remember correctly, I think I might have even given the first Dune book 5 stars, and I'm pretty sure I gave the second one 2 stars. And then I gave the third one 3 stars, and I gave this one 4 stars, or 3 stars rather, like I said. So what was your rating for this one? And do you remember your ratings for the others?
My rating was 2.
Oh wow, so
I
you liked it
think
even less than me. I guess that was kind of apparent from our chat here.
Yeah, this originally I gave it 2. I think if I was to be more accurate, I'd probably give it more of a 2.5,
Yeah, I
which
often
is,
would use those half stars if I had the opportunity.
but yeah, this is my least favorite of the original 6. It's, yeah, even the second read through was more enlightening, but I definitely prefer the other books to this one.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, because we find out the beginning is just weird too. It's like there's these wolves, and like, yeah, that's such a primitive fucking mode of defense for your empire. Some wolves, yeah. I don't.
Yeah, yeah, that's not very effective.
It just seems kind of lame, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely the bottom of the 6 for me.
yeah, yeah, me too. All right, so I was thinking that for for our next chat for just you and me, I think we should talk about that next Dark Tower book, the fourth one, if that sounds good to you.
That sounds amazing to me.
Awesome. I'm
I'm
really liking that
expecting to
series.
love it.
Me too.
Yeah, I was looking at its place in the fantasy top like 25. I mean the fantasy top list on Reddit, where
Hmm,
they every year they rank pretty much all the major franchises, and Dark Tower is in the top 25. So,
sweet.
and typically in the top 25 is where all the good stuff is.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah,
so
let's talk about that in maybe a few weeks or so if we can both read it by then.
yeah, for sure. I'll have to
And
go and get on getting that book from my library.
sweet. I'm pretty sure I have a physical copy of that one. I actually just in secondhand bookstores have bought a copy of. I'm pretty sure there are 7 books in the series, so I think I have
Mm.
a physical copy of every one of them except number 5.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's quite the collection.
yeah, yeah. It's awesome. So yeah, also for people watching the next one. Oh wait, no. I guess I didn't think, or I actually guess the next one we're going to be doing in general, people should watch on your channel. We're going to talk about the Mad Max 2 movie, which would be interesting because I
Hmm.
hadn't seen it before. And
The Road Warrior.
yes, the Road Warrior. And then, and that'll be this weekend. And then the Thursday after this upcoming one, we're going to talk with our fellow fantasy nerd Tristram, of course, about The Heroes, which is the second standalone book in Joe Abercrombie's grimdark First Law fantasy series. That is that will be fun to talk about because all three of us, you Tristram and I, like I would say we probably all love every Joe Abercrombie book that we've read, but this one, out of the 3 standalones that take place after the original trilogy, this
Uh huh.
second one is my least favorite, and it's Tristram's favorite. So that'll be fun to talk about because like we'll probably have subtle differences in our opinions, but like I said, one of us likes it the most and one of us likes that the least. So that'll be fun to discuss.
Yeah, it's also my least favorite, but I still enjoy it. I think I'm probably gonna enjoy it the second read through. I'm already enjoying it more.
Yeah, I just started my reread of it earlier today.
Yeah, I'm about an hour and a half into it.
I think I'm about
So,
the same length into it as well.
all right. Yeah, the Stranger Comes Knocking got introduced.
Hmm. Yeah, there are a lot. There are definitely, I would say, even more characters in this book from the original First Law trilogy than there are in the first standalone best served cold for sure. Right at the beginning, we see a whole
Oh
lot of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's way more characters than
Yeah, yeah, like Lord Baez, Dogman, Black Dow, hell, a whole host of others as well. So that's pretty cool for
Mm.
sure. And Shivers, of course. I'm pretty sure he's the only character from the original First Law trilogy who is also
Baez.
in all three standalones. No, Shivers.
Oh, oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess it's true. He's in all the standalones. Um,
Yeah.
but isn't Baez in it, all of them too?
Maybe I don't remember him being in Best Served Cold, but maybe he is, and I just don't remember. That's entirely possible.
I think he might be. He makes like a very short appearance in Best Served Cold.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
entirely
think he
possible.
does. I'm not
Okay,
entirely sure, but I think he does.
okay.
Makes a short appearance, but I could be mistaken also. So.
Wonder if the internet knows the answer to that question.
Or maybe he's just
Uh,
mentioned. But does
um,
Shiver show up in the second trilogy?
that's a
Also?
good that's a good question. I don't remember that actually.
So I haven't finished it yet.
Um, is Shivers in the second First Law trilogy? Some of these questions I'm asking, I think, are too specific for the internet to find.
Maybe Chat GPT will be able to find it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it doesn't really say.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, people watching should check out those upcoming chats. Check out us talking Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior on Dusty's channel, Woke Centrist, this weekend. And
Mm-hmm.
the a week after this upcoming Thursday, we'll talk about The Heroes with Tristram. And in a few weeks, we'll talk about the fourth Dark Tower book by Stephen King, his like horror sci-fi fantasy western, which is bizarre and fascinating. So yeah, check out all that stuff and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Check out the link for my Patreon page. Link is in the description. As always, share this everywhere and share your mindgasms and tell people about these fascinating and bizarre fantasy books that we discuss. And of course, read them yourself and see what we say about them. And oh yeah, of course, most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. All right, so anything else to add before we end it there, Dusty?
No, you plugged me as well, so I've got nothing to plug here. But yeah, you guys take care and
All right.
smash that like button
Yeah.
and subscribe and all that.
Yes. Smash the like button, subscribe, share, all that stuff. All right. Thanks, man. Always fun to talk. And adios until next time, everyone.
Faux show.